Hi, it's Dave from Telescribe and Nothing Gained. With me today, of course, is Andy Edwards from Nomadic Rain and Kirk Houghton from Screen Blast Repeat, and you're watching the ADK Rock and Metal channel. Okay, we're back. We're doing some more album reviews. Now, this one is a little bit different than what we would normally do. We normally do retrospective ones of specific years, 20 years, 30 years, 25, etc. But this one wasn't. This was a bit of a kind of a bit of a left field pick by myself. And this one, I'm going to give it as a title of Influencer or Influenced is the subtext of this album. And we are talking about Avenged Sevenfold's album Hail to the King, which came out in 2013. And to give us a bit more of a background on this album, I'm going to hand over to Kirk to give us a bit of a video breakdown.
Released on August the 23rd, 2013, Hail to the King is the sixth studio album from American heavy metal titans Avenged Sevenfold. It's somewhat of a strange record in their discography based on what came before and what came after it. Gone were the band's metalcore roots, and nowhere could you find their progressive leanings. Instead, the group talked about exploring more of a blues rock direction leading up to its completion, this time making their influences obvious. In this case, the multi-platinum selling rock and metal artists from the 1980s onwards proved to be the main inspiration, with fans and critics alike citing the anthemic quality of Avenged songs, while also noting the similarities with Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Megadeth, and Iron Maiden. Nonetheless, most publications praised the quality of the songs and the musicianship, and the fans loved it. Hail to the King went straight to number one in the USA, UK, Brazil, Canada, and the Republic of Ireland, and now has become one of the best-selling metal albums of the last 10 years. Indeed, it has shifted a whopping 1 million units alone in the United States and 100,000 in the UK. Hail to the King is a far cry from the avant-garde metal of their Life Is But a Dream album released in 2023, but it represents a high point in their career as a pop culture phenomenon and helped to grow their fan base, which, as we know, is one of the most fanatical in modern heavy metal.
Okay, we're just going to hand over to you, Kirk, to lead us through the rest of the journey.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for choosing this. I've never given this band the time that they probably deserve. And I was just saying before we started this, I am shocked how successful this band it's incredible. I didn't realize that they're as big as this. This album sold 1 million physical units in the United States alone, got to number one in the UK, US, Finland, 3 or 4 other countries. Phenomenal achievement. So why I haven't checked these out is a mystery. So thank you for giving me the opportunity. Maybe you haven't chosen the best album, but yeah, let's get into it. I think, Andy, I'd like to start with you. Can you pick out your 2 favourite songs from this 2013 record?
Yeah, a bit like yourself, really. Avenged Sevenfold, very well-known band. I've seen sort of media of them, so I've got an idea of sort of the lineup and the sort of guys they are and what they look like. But it's not really a band that, you know, I've ever even thought about getting into. I'll perhaps go into that a little bit later. But favourite tracks. My only sort of really interaction with this band is when we covered the title track, "Hail to the King," about 10 months ago on the channel. We've done a sort of video review and breakdown of the promotional video that accompanied the title track for this album. So that is one of my favourites. I like the sort of the chunky riff that opens the song, and it's got like a lead melody sort of playing underneath it, which sort of carries on as the verses kick in. It does have that sort of commercial record company choice for a single sort of vibe to it. It does sort of sound a little bit sort of more commercial and accessible and a bit more palatable than many of the other tracks. There's sort of Iron Maiden vibe in the chorus, and I'm going to guess it's a live favourite, certainly at the time, maybe even today, because it's got that sort of the crowd chant along section that you can imagine sort of comes about when they play it live. So that was my first choice. But I think a song that I like more than that is the opener, "Shepherd of Fire." That was a really strong track, really good way of opening the album. It's got sort of atmospheric introduction with the it sounds like sort of burning and church bells, and there's a simple single note riff that repeats, which I really liked. Now, the orchestration of that, is that horns, strings, or something generated on a keyboard? But whatever that is, I really like that as well. The simple riff comes around again when the song starts proper. Decent solo, decent vocals, and there's a spoken word section as well with the orchestral part that carries on from the opening, and that sort of ends the song as well. So it sort of starts how it ends how it starts, and I think it's a really strong opening track for the album, which we share our thoughts on the opening track. There's mine, and Shepherd of Fire and the title track Hail to the King are my favourites from this album.
Yeah, I'll go next, Dave, because I do want to hear, because it sounds like you probably bought this when it came out. I remember it being released and it being a big event in the calendar for new music in 2013. So there's no song that I really dislike on this album, but there's not much originality either. So I actually found it hard to find two that stand out for the right reasons, because I will say up front, even if a lot of this does rip off Metallica, Megadeth, Guns N' Roses and Iron Maiden, my God, they do it so well. You've almost got to give them a free pass for that. I mean, at times it is a bit like Stars in Their Eyes. Tonight, Matthew, I'm going to be Megadeth or I'm going to be Metallica, but I just don't know of a band that does it as well as this either. And for a fact, he's the better singer than all of those that we've just mentioned, including Axl Rose. So they've got a lot going for them. The songs that stand out, I agree with you, Andy. It is a horn. I looked it up. This is an album that was released on Warner Brothers, so they had a massive budget, didn't bother with keyboards. They got in a full orchestra and paid for session musicians. Great start to Shepherd of Fire. To me, I'm already hearing the homage to Enter Sandman, the way that they've built the intro to the song. But again, it's enjoyable though. So even though straight away I'm hearing these influences, I'm still vibing with it. And the theatrical heavy metal voice of M Shadow's invigorating, and I love how the drums and bass are using triplets in that verse part as well. So there's some really interesting things going on. Within one verse that this will be an anthemic song, and that applies to every song on this album. The tone actually reminds me of Queensryche as much as Iron Maiden. And one thing you can't deny, these guys can play, especially the lead guitarist, Sinister Gates. He's better than Kirk Hammett. When he's on the fretboard and sweep picking, it's absolute perfection. It's sublime. So the part after the solo, though, is pure Enter Sandman, to the point where I'm even imagining the Metallica video, where you have that prayer in the breakdown. Not the breakdown, the middle eight. They do the same thing here. So good song, not much originality. The other one I liked actually was, for the same reason, number 9, because they have a French horn in that, Planets. Probably one that might pass people by, this song, but I do like how they bring that darkness into it with like these militaristic drums, and then they go in search of Dave Mustaine again, don't they, for the upteenth time. Fortunately, the vocals are a million times better than the Megadeth frontman's voice, so they've always got that to support them. Excellent use of eighth notes from the drummer in the chorus before he half times the second part of the chorus as well. You can really hear the hanging drop tune chord. So one thing is certain, you don't forget the riffs on this album, and listen to how M Shadows delves into his huskier vocal register for the chorus. Very impressive. They were the two for me. Dave, what stands out for you on this record? Which songs?
So what was interesting for me with this was, and the reason I picked this album to talk about it is because you've got Nightmare, the album prior to this, and you've got The Stage that came after it. Very, very different albums. And this is a band where you get a very different listening experience depending on which album you pick, because they don't sound the same, the albums. They have very distinctive characters. With Nightmare being, the drums were written by the Rev but were performed by Mike Portney, came in to actually do the drums for the Nightmare album. A phenomenal album. This came in much more stripped back, much more rock, classic metal. But what was very interesting, it was only after it was released that the band started talking about how this was more of a homage to their influences. Now, I think that was brought up because of the fact that people were saying, this sounds like Iron Maiden, this sounds like Megadeth, to the point where when you talk about songs like This Means War, and you're like, well, that's just Sad But True by Metallica.
Yeah. I put that.
Blatantly, you followed the same structure. Now they've done it, as you said, they've done it incredibly well. This is a great way of paying respect to other bands by putting your own steer, by taking their ideas. I mean, you talk about songs like "Coming Home," which is so Iron Maiden in that particular track. But for me, the songs that I will talk about Shepherds of Fire, and I'll do that when we talk about it as the opening track, as you've already done it. I'll come back to it in a second. But I love the Guns N' Roses-esque of Doing Time. I mean, literally, the first verse when he's singing, you think it is Axl Rose when he's doing it. It only starts to sound like M Shadows when he goes to the actual chorus. But it is literally Appetite for Destruction, Guns N' Roses, and is a phenomenal track. I loved what they did on Requiem with the orchestral and the operatic layers. I mean, big theatrical part. Heretic is another one massively inspired by Megadeth. This is like Rust in Peace era Megadeth stylizations in there. And of course, Shepherd of Fire, which you've already covered all the key points. And although you say Enter Sandman, I say Megadeth's Reckoning Day, which starts with exactly the same drum tempos off of Euthanasia. And this, you can hear about, this is where these bands were massively influenced. When I'm talking about 1994's Euthanasia album, this is where Avenged Sevenfold were getting all their music from around that sort of time. So you've actually got, you can hear them paying homage to it. So but they are also influencing another generation of musicians. So it's great to be, they're influenced, but they're doing it so blatantly, taking their influences and putting them back into songs. But Shepherd Fire is a great opener to the album. And as you said, his voice is better than that of Axl Rose and of Dave Mustaine. I love the production work on it. Very strong, very punchy, very dynamic, and you could say that across the album. And I would be surprised if you could pick any song out of this album and not be able to pick out who the reference point was or which band. You've mentioned Planets, and you can see Machine Head in there with that drum fill. That's coming off of one of the Machine Head albums, and I think Rob Flynn called out the band for that and said, "You've just ripped off my track." And there was a bit of a beef about that, which has been squashed in later days. But yeah, for me, that's the two that really kind of Heretic for me, Doing Time, and Shepherds of Fire would be the three that were my favourite off the album.
Can we stay with you for if you give us a summary, what do you think are the high points and the low points of this record?
So the high point for me for this is the fact that is as part of a catalogue of work. So it's a great period of time album. So it's also not an album to go. This gives you a great idea of a wide space of Avenged Sevenfold work. So if you want to hear an influential album or a band or what music influenced the band, go check this album out. And it's a great standalone piece. But as far as the weakest part of this album is, as part of the Avenged Sevenfold catalogue, it doesn't represent the band as far as what their other works are. Now, their earliest work is like hardcore. They were a really aggressive band with very little in the way of tunefulness as far as like commerciality metal. They were far more intense, far more aggressive. And then with City of Evil, and when they did Beast and the Harlot and all that sort of stuff, they started to understand where that transition went. And by the time they got to the stage and more recent albums, they still very metallic, but it sounds more like that. All those other albums, you can see a journey. This was the weakest part, is it doesn't sit well within the rest of the album catalogues. But as a standalone piece it's almost like Garage Days by Garage Inc. by Metallica. You almost want to take it out of the album cycle and go, this is just them riffing out, coming up with their own creative ideas as influenced by their favourite artists. That's how I treat this album.
Andy, I'd be keen to know, what are the high points and low points in your opinion?
I think one of you said, I think you say there's nothing that stands out for favourite tracks or strong tracks. It's just sort of consistent throughout. So I haven't really got any high points or low points, but I will just sort of summarise my feelings on the album in this section, if I may. It's amazing how similar the things Dave said regarding what influenced each of these songs are. The bands that influenced the sort of creation of some of these tracks. I mean, I haven't got the same references as you, for Guns N' Roses and Megadeth, for example, but Doing Time's like a rock song that sounded like Billy Idol on vocals to me. This Means War. It took me a while to pinpoint it, but yeah, Sad But True by Metallica. It's almost a complete rip-off of that opening riff, even the vocal phrasing as well. Requiem, I've got Tarja Air and Nightwish with a sprinkling of Messiah, Marklin Candlemass when you sort of rejoin the band at a later date. One of them sort of had a Bon Jovi feel. Coming Home, completely agree with Dave. It's Blaze Bayley era Iron Maiden, but with Dickinson on vocals. And, you know, it's to me, it sounded like different vocalists throughout the whole album. I'm not quite sure who it's aimed at, this particular band, but it does seem very safe. Like when I was talking about the title track, which was released as a single, certainly a video single. It's the sort of music that you could say, well, I'm into rock and metal. You might like this because it's not offensive. It's quite engaging. It's quite accessible, and it's got that sort of, you know, just, you know, if you want to add a weak point, the front cover's very sort of cliche Spinal Tap in it. The sort of skull with the bat wings. That's very sort of, oh, what should we have on the cover? Oh, that'll do. You know, sort of thing. You know, when if you don't know what tattoo you want to get, and you just see it in the shop window, you think, oh, that looks cool. I'll stick that on my arm. And these guys have said, let's stick it on the front cover of our album. But I say it wasn't a terrible album. It wasn't a great album, but it just really threw me at how similar some of these tracks are to established, recognised bands, and how different the vocals were throughout.
Yeah, I mean, do you know, I think this might actually qualify as a guilty pleasure for me, because I'm thinking there is not one original idea on this album, but it's so enjoyable. And maybe that's the ultimate triumph of it. I mean, everything you've just said, you two, I agree with. I mean, I'm just reading through, Doing Time, starts like Megadeth, the gear down into Guns N' Roses, This Means War. I actually did have to press pause and think, they're on a major label. Did they get James Hetfield to come in and sing this for them? In those opening because like the only thing there is like they can't decide whether to rip off Harvester of Sorrow or Sad But True, and then they veer towards Sad But True. But it's actually a really good song though as well, and his vocals where they change key leading up to the chorus, that's very clever. So I keep listening to it, and again I can't help but make the comparisons. Far better. I mean, this is going to offend people. He's a better guitar player than Kirk Hammond.
Oh, by far, yeah.
When you listen to the soloing, far more advanced. So yeah, that's just another one. I mean, I did like Requiem. I agree that would have been my third choice. I think I've put actually, could this be the first song on the album that doesn't rip off the platinum selling greats? Because it's got like this dramatic Kyle Orth intro. You know, the guy who, the Omen soundtrack. Da 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 da.
Mighty Empress. Yeah, that's good song. Good piece of music. That brilliant.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh Fortuna, and then it has this.
That's it.
Groove. So I really liked that. So there are a few things on here where you're thinking, oh, okay, I can see what they're doing, but it's so blatant at times. And yeah, This Means War. I mean, that is the most blatant Metallica ripoff I think I've ever heard. Yeah, it's not unlistenable either. And yeah, Coming Home, even I put Iron Maiden back in favour for this. It's like a costume change, isn't it? The vocals are superb, but he's got a different personality for every song. So me, the high points, anthemic quality of the songwriting, there's no doubt this is good songwriting, stupendous audio production, and the lead guitar work and vocal performance, they are superb. But yeah, the weakness, I'll say it again, I don't think there's a single original musical idea on this record. It is like that former British programme Stars in Their Eyes, where they come and say, tonight Matthew, I'm going to be, and then they've named the artist. They seem to have done that on the tracks here. I mean, normally at this stage we move on to the opening song, but I think we have covered Shepherd of Fire quite extensively, haven't we? What are your thoughts on the closing song? Andy, we'll start with you. Acid Rain. What did you think about that? 6 minutes and 40 seconds, track number 10.
Well, it's a ballad, in my opinion, and it's a weak ballad. And this is my Guns N' Roses reference. And there are some really excellent metal ballads, rock ballads, whatever you want to call them. I mean, I remember back in the day, years and years ago, I made a compilation cassette, and I called it, I can't remember the exact title, but it's all the sort of acoustic, clean, nice ballady type songs that were in my repertoire of music back then. But but this doesn't stand up to anything like that. You know, Free Man by Angel, which is an example of that, for example. You know, and it's just piano intro was quite cool. I like that, but overall, it's just a too long, not good enough, and a really poor choice to finish the album with. That's the sort of thing that you want probably a third of the way in after some intensity, just to give yourself a reset. So I didn't like Acid Rain at all.
Dave, what did you think about it? Is it too long at 6 minutes and 40 seconds?
Well, you could get rid of all the effect at the end of the track to start with because it just didn't need it at the end. I guess what they were trying to do was rain effect and just trying to make it all kind of get it like sound effect at the end just to fade the album out. But it's one of the weakest songs on the album. In fact, it probably is for me the weakest song on the album. As it says, there's two ballads, that and Crimson Day. I mean, Crimson Day is basically November Rain by Guns N' Roses style track, and it works better as a power ballad. But you could have put any other song on the album as the last song on the album and it would have worked better for me. It doesn't serve any purpose. I would have moved it further down. Even just swap that and Planets over and have Planets as ending of the album would have been better. It's a pointless ending. It's if you were listening to this as a tracks 1 to 10 as a listener back in the day, you CD, you put it in, you put it on and you play it. I'd feel so disappointed listening to that album, having had such great rock and metal tracks, then just to finish on that and go, and then you'd be so grateful that if you put Loop on, that Shepherds of Fire is about to kick in, you're like, thank fuck for that. Brilliant, I've just got that. That's what you want. That's the sort of thing you want to have as almost the outro, as another Shepherds of Fire. And what's funny is since we've been doing these album reviews, we're yet to find a great closing song. We keep getting great openers, but this is something that album after album comes through that bands don't seem to think of the last song on the album as being that important. I think a lot of people go, second half of the album, people don't really get into. You've got to make sure you load up your first 4 songs in the album, make them big, and get your singles in there. That's the old way of doing it. And get your power ballad in by track number 4 is usually the way. Which is interesting that they didn't do that. They don't get any ballads until track 6 here, which is unusual. Back in the 80s and 90s, it used to be your lead single, your title tracks would be at the beginning, your big single would be track number 2, and by track 4 on every album was your power ballad. And that was always the way that they did it. You could just go through albums and see it. But interesting. But yeah, I would probably just skip that song. I just don't listen to it at all.
Yeah, I agree. It's too long for me. I mean, I like how they wrote it on a piano and then built the hard rock features around it. And M Shadows, yet again, nails it, doesn't he, in his vocal delivery. And you can sing along to every word. And when I say, does it need to be 6 minutes? Well, when you've paid for an orchestra to come in and add tension and drama, why not? But yeah, it just seems slightly underwhelming, doesn't it? Despite all the ingredients, doesn't quite deliver on that. So I think there is a consensus there. I mean, the musicianship, does anyone dissent from the view that this is superb musicianship? Even if it sounds like they're covering their favourite bands, they seem to do it better than their favourite bands at times.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, great production and great musicianship and playing. They knew what they got the idea. So even when you say things like "this means war," if they didn't go in there saying we're going to basically do a tribute to Sad But True, and they go, "Oh, that's we didn't realise that." If someone reviewed it and went, "Do you know that sounds like Sad But True?" Really? Bollocks! Of course they knew they did that, and they intentionally. What happened was they started writing and went, "We've got this riff and it's kind of cool like Sad But True. Fuck it, should we just build a song and make a song that sounds a bit like Sad But True and just do our own thing with it?" But they've done it well without ripping the riffs off completely, because they even follow the same structure as the song. So even the transitions and stuff, you're like, my God, you're even doing the pre-choruses and the choruses, you're changing keys up in the same sort of places. You're like, so you've obviously done that with a lot of these songs. They've gone in there and gone, well, let's do an Iron Maiden-esque type song. What's weird? Give us a Sinister Gates. Give us an Iron Maiden-esque riff for us, and they'll riff something and go, fuck it, let's write a song around that. And they've gone in there. I swear to God, they must have. And if they say they haven't, bollocks. I'm calling bollock on that.
Yeah, because there's a song you mentioned, Megadeth, Heretic. To me, that's just a large dose of Megadeth in the countdown to extinction era.
Exactly, yeah.
And even the guitar and bass combination is loosely based on Symphony of Destruction, isn't it? when you listen
You
to
can
them
hear that the
combine that.
bass, like because the bass player in Avenged Sevenfold does not play like Dave Ellefson in any other of the other albums.
No, as
His
you say,
bass
with
playing
the
is completely different. But
playing,
now he's doing this solid bass line, pumping
yeah.
bass line. I'm like, you're writing Megadeth bass type. You're playing it in the style of Dave Ellefson.
That's it exactly. Yeah, I mean, what one thing I will say though with this album, it made me. I didn't realize that after 2016's album, The Stage, they didn't release another album until 2 years ago, 2023, and that is a million miles away from this. So I was listening to it, I was quite impressed. I was like, this is fucking avant-garde metal. You know, progressive, a lot of Dream Theater, Mr. Bungle type changes in there. I was like, is this the same band? So to me,
You just got Andy
yeah,
excited and disappointed in
at
one
the same time,
sentence.
yeah.
It's got
Dream
Dream
Theater,
Theater and Mr. Bungle. He was
Mr.
like,
Bungle.
oh shit.
Yeah.
But I mean, and you would not think it's the same band, and yeah, it's ironic that I'm criticizing this album, parts of it, because it doesn't have an original idea, and they're only influenced by the platinum selling greats. Yet their last album is avant-garde metal, so the talent in this band is undeniable. I mean, what do we think strongest here, side A or side B? Because I think there's a good balance to the record. Dave, what would you say is the strongest side?
So strongest side for me would be side A. As far as strongest songs, strongest riffs, biggest metal tracks in there, but some of the more interesting songs. So when you start thinking like Heretic, I really enjoy. Coming Home, I quite like. Planets is quite interesting. It's probably just because of the two ballads, Acid Rain and Crimson Day, on the side B that just lets that side down. Otherwise, it had some of the more interesting. Uh, but yeah, as far as if you're going to do like some bangers in there, the first four tracks on the album are absolute bangers, so you can't fault that.
Yeah, Andy, what do you think? Side A or side B?
Yeah, side A for me, unsurprisingly. The two tracks that I highlighted as my favourites on side A, first and second songs. You said you put Requiem as your possible third choice. Same for me. I really enjoyed that. And because it is so close to Sad But True, you know, I really like This Means War as well. That they do, like Dave said, they must have known exactly how this song formulated amongst themselves and what they were doing. But it still comes across as a great track. So yeah, side A. Not much really to report in my notes from side B. I mean, Acid Rain was by far the weakest song, but not much to say about the others that preceded it. On the second half of the album.
Yeah, side A for me. I do think that the pacing and structure of the album is superb. If you just judge it on that alone, we often use that word. It's an album of 10 bangers or 8 and 2 ballads. If we go with the latter description, they've still structured it really well. And I don't think there's ever a moment where it loses your attention, because you're just thinking, oh, can we just have another rousing metal song? They've always got one ready, haven't they, every time where you think, oh, what's happening here? So yeah, I was quite impressed with how they've structured that, and clearly they knew they were going to go into that studio. They needed 10 songs, and the playing time of it is still 53 minutes as well. So the songwriting is good. It's just not original, is it? But when we say has this album stood the test of time, I think Dave, you've already given a good summary of it, that it doesn't fit into the discography, and that they're very clearly wanting to put an album out that shows who their influences are. And clearly this is nothing like when they first burst onto the scene with the new wave of American heavy metal and the metalcore pack. So it is a bit of an outlier, this album. So can we even be asking, has the album stood the test of time, Dave, when we know it's a homage? It's not meant to stand the test of time, is it? I guess I'm saying.
So I think putting in the principle of like Metallica's Garage Inc. is a great way of putting it, because if you look at Metallica's Garage Inc., it's a moment in time. It was captured for the band. It was captured for, in their case, it was them doing covers, but it was a case of like, this is what we're doing at this moment. And you don't see Metallica playing many of those Garage Inc. songs live. They occasionally, like, people might do Whiskey in a Jar or something for it, but generally they're not part of the main set. This is very similar with Avenged Sevenfold. Apart from Hail to the King, not many of the other songs on this are regular live ones, whereas if you go to earlier albums, you've got a lot more. And again, probably like the first album, nothing really comes off that, but stuff off the stage and stuff off Nightmare is always played live. So there are certain songs that are intrinsic to the band, whereas this, to me, I think is great as a moment capture. And the thing is, I listen to this album all the time, so that's one of the things. Is I listen to Nightmare, I listen to The Stage, but I listen to this one more because there's a nostalgia element as well for me in this, because it's a band I enjoy playing music of other bands that I enjoy. So I'm getting like a double whammy almost of it. So, but as far as does it stand up to today, probably not, I would say.
What would you give it out of 10 then?
So my score for this album, for this 10-track album, is a 7 out of 10, purely because there are 8 songs on this album that I really enjoy, but I'm taking a point off them for a lack of originality. So they're getting a 7 from me.
Andy, what's your final verdict and summary?
I'm surprised Dave sort of rated it quite as low as he did. I mean, I was going to go for sort of around a 6, because it is an album that I will go back to for certainly 4 of the songs on the first half. You know, if I feel like mixing it up, you know, the sort of stuff I'm listening to, you know, trying to get into sort of new material, I will revisit these songs. So I didn't play this over and over again like I do on some of the reviews that we do. So the 2 opening tracks and This Means War and Requiem, I think, were really strong songs. So yeah, I'll go with 6.
I'm going to position myself in the middle. I'm going to give it a 6.5. It's enjoyable, so there's no way I was going to give it a 5 out of 10. And it is disturbing in its lack of originality, but strangely enough, really good at the same time in how they take those influences and run with them, and in some cases do it better than the originals. But if we are to ask that question, has it stood the test of time? Well, it was a throwback in 2013, so there's no way it's going to change. That's going to change in the future. And yeah, if it had 1 or 2 different songs on there that had some semblance of originality, it would definitely have been a 7 or even an 8, because the musicianship is superb. But yeah, 6.5 from me, so that gives us actually 6.5 as the overall score. Yeah, you're right, Dave. We were expecting you to probably give this 7.5 or 8. And
I have to be honest, because there were there's a couple of tracks in there that I couldn't do it for. And I just checked. So just checking. So in 2025, currently playing live, only "Hail to the King" is off this album, is in the live set. Yeah. Whereas all the other albums have got a couple of songs from each of those albums. They're big songs. So yeah, it didn't. They've only kept that one in, which is their main lead single. So that gives you an idea of where they see it. That's where I think the band themselves have moved on from this album. Yeah. Very clearly, they know where they want to be. This isn't where they want, but this was just a moment in time of what they wanted to do. So, yeah, interesting album. So let us know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you on another video sometime very soon. Take care.